Hey, we're live and welcome back. And today I'm joined by the lovely Jane Bayler, and we are going to be talking about surviving the corporate life. You've had quite an interesting background there, which I'll come on to, surviving breast cancer, and then going into, well, I've said business, but really, I feel like it's just you're an entrepreneur. You're doing it, Jane. So I'm excited for today to find out a little bit more. I know you spent 20 years, in business and working for some real big global companies such as ITV, British Airways, Coca-Cola. But tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing, your time, about you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Matt. And I have to say, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. So where did it all begin? So I'll just talk about the career stuff, because obviously I don't want to bore everybody about, my history before that. So I started working in media and entertainment pretty early. I left university and sort of had a little bit of a dabble in the film industry and in theatre, and I was working as an art director. But I realized that I had more to offer than just the design stuff, and I was really interested and fascinated by the topic of marketing. So I kind of slid in by the back door into the advertising industry, and I think people, they tend to pigeonhole you in that environment. They just see what you're good at and they say, oh, let's put her there. So I ended up in this role where I was developing business and I was running accounts for, as you said, global brands like British Airways and ITV and Discovery Networks, and lots of different big Coca-Cola, big household names. So I ended up doing that, and it was I worked for some different companies. I worked for an events company. I worked for, as we said, a global advertising agency and a television company. So I had kind of quite an interesting background by the time I came to this opportunity that was really life-changing. Which was, I was actually invited into this design business. It was a London design business. They asked me to be MD, but the business itself was actually falling apart. It'd been a very successful business, very creatively acclaimed, but it was a partnership, and one of the two partners had left to go to New York and work for a rival company. So the partners had been at loggerheads with one another. And even though there was a good business there and they had a steady stream of clients, turnover of just walking through the door, £1 million or so a year. So, it wasn't a bad business, but the whole legal fight between the two of them had meant that it had slightly fallen apart. And so he was kind of on his knees and he said, can I come in and work with him to build this thing back up? And he was tired and he wanted to sell it. And at that particular time, I was a single parent. I was exhausted too. I've been traveling all around the world, commuting from my home in Hertfordshire to central London with these children, not really seeing the children. And I just saw that as the way out. So I said yes. He still paid me quite a lot of money and gave me a profit share and gave me shares in the business. So I was incentivized to build it back up. But for me, it was a good enough incentive, and I saw the opportunity. And what happened is really it was spectacularly successful. And within a couple of years, we'd grown it from 1 to 6 million, and then we sold it to a US communications group called Interpublic the year after. So that really gave me an exit and gave me some time and some money to actually make up for lost time with my children, who had really become strangers to me by that time. And so, that was it. And then I exited about a year later, and the rest is history, because that was when I started just running my own businesses and doing things for myself, as opposed to really kind of working to support other people in that global branding environment.
So you started a children's education business. So that based around your own children, or just something, I really want to do this?
Yeah, well, actually, I came from my mother was a teacher, so I came from a family that was, let's just say, very focused on education. And I realized when I had children that I actually really cared about this stuff as well. I really wanted to equip them with a good education, the best education that I could. And so with my business skills that I already had, I just saw that there was an opportunity. So in the area that I lived in, which was quite a wealthy area because it was in 11 plus area as well, most of the parents, in fact, nearly all, I'd say like 95% of the parents would get tuition for their children in year 5. So I thought, well, I'll start up this business. It's only going to be year 5. I'm not going to do anything else. It's going to be year 5, 11 plus an entrance exam preparation. And I just set it up as a really nice little business with recurring revenues. If I took a child on, the parents they'd have to pay for the year, they'd pay monthly, ran it as groups. I had the local sixth formers to help me. And then when my children got a bit older, they'd also help a bit. So they really worked with the children. And I tended to kind of just liaise with the parents and do the business side of things. So that was actually a really nice little business. And it served me very well for a few years. And the other thing that happened is I just shoveled my own children into there as well. So they basically got, good education, free education, and they were around that. Well, I mean, not just an educational environment, but also an entrepreneurial environment. So, I mean, they've grown up with that. But I think there came a time when I just thought, you know what, I just want to go back to my roots. My children were getting older. This was a local business. It was, I wanted to go online and be location independent, really. So that was when I kind of wound it down a little bit. I passed it on to a friend of mine, and she ran it for a while. And, I just got some of the profits from that. And then at the same time, I just started developing my other stuff, really, which was my property business that I've had for some time now, and also my Smart Connector podcast, my Facebook group, my coaching, mentoring, training, and the Ideal Client Success Program, which is one of the things that I'm focusing on right now. So in a nutshell, in a potted nutshell, that's it really, Matt. Thank you for asking.
No, that's brilliant. And it's nice. It's lovely to hear how it has evolved, really. And just some of the things you said about where you were a single mum, and I guess things do take a toll at some point, and we have to make these decisions. I found for myself, it's just things just go so much out of balance at some point, and then we have to bring it away, and it settles down, and then what, I'm happy. I'm happy with everything that's going on around me, and the reason why. So was that change? What was that reason why into developing now to the Smart Connector? What's brought you to that side of things?
Yeah, so we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but I had a series of very, very difficult experiences. It hasn't all been a bed of roses. I've definitely had some ups and downs, but there was a time where a lot of things happened all at once, and they were actually very painful. So one of the things is that my husband had lost his business, which was very difficult, caused some problems for us. And at the same time, we had also invested with some developers in property, and that was going wrong. So let's just say some big stresses had kind of moved into our lives at that particular time. And things have been pretty stable and pretty kind of rosy for a while. So, it just was a coincidence this had happened. Then I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that kind of set in chain a whole series of operations, chemotherapy, all sorts of things. So suddenly all of this stress was all happening all at once. And then my husband actually had an affair and ran off overnight to live with his mistress, his girlfriend, who I didn't even know about. So all of these things kind of happened all at once. And then the life that I thought I had was just, that was it. It was no more. I mean, just so many things had changed in such a short space of time. So during that time, I really had to reflect on, look, how on earth did I get here? I'd done all of this great stuff. I'd sold the business. I'd done what I thought was the best thing for my children. I'd continued to grow businesses, run businesses, like, why has all this happened? And I really had to do some soul searching. And what I realized is that I hadn't prioritized the quality of my relationships enough. I had really misjudged the power of connection. And I had let people into my life, and I do actually include my ex-husband in this, even though we did have some good times together as well. But to be honest, my standards were too low. They were just too low. And I look back and I saw that as a consistent pattern in my life. And I know that we've had other conversations about addiction and all of that, Matt. And I know, and I traced it back, and I know that it went right back to my childhood because, I had some addiction issues in my family growing up. And what that means is that I was technically what's called an ACOA. So I was an adult child of alcoholic, which kind of means that your brain is wired slightly differently and your patterns of relating to people are not always that healthy. You do need people like me. We need help and support to relate, to the right people in the right way. Otherwise, we're really at risk of falling into the wrong relationships. And so despite all of the things that I knew that I had done right, this was something that I had done wrong. And I'd done it wrong in business and I'd done it wrong in life. And so from John De Martini, who I absolutely love and I interviewed recently on my podcast, he says, every void creates values. So, let's just say everything had crumbled to nothing. And out of that became really this unshakable conviction that nothing is more important to our success and our well-being and our happiness in business and in life than connection. So the Smart Connector really was born from that.
Wow, what a story, Jane, and thank you so much for sharing, because it's the hard times, isn't it, that they don't define us, but they really shape us and mold us into who we are. So I guess that's about several challenges in one. And how did not to go on it too much, but can you remember what that defining moment was when you said, no, I'm not, this is who I'm going to be now, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I mean, literally I'd reached rock bottom. I had reached this point where it's like, what the hell is happening? Like, what on earth is happening to me? And I was just, my mind was spinning. I wasn't sleeping. I was just so sad. I was in this very prolonged feeling of grief, because I'd lost my home, I'd lost my husband, I'd lost my health, I'd lost money, I'd lost so much in such a short space of time. And so I would say that emotionally I had reached rock bottom. For me personally. Now, I mean, I always, I'm very, very grateful for my life. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, I was suicidal. No, I never, ever went there, because I know what a gift life is, having, come through the cancer journey. And I know that whatever happened, I wanted to live. I wanted to be there for my children, and I wanted to turn this, difficult situation around. But I think sometimes we have to be humbled before we kind of really make big changes, let's just say. So I just got to this point, and I got some help from a couple of people, and I actually went to the US for an intervention, which was very, very powerful. And to cut a long story short, I just realized that the answer lay in this issue of authentic connection, and actually really, I don't know if I can say it in a different way, but I just don't think that anything matters more than the the quality of the people that you surround yourself with, and the quality of your relationships dictates the quality of your life 100%. And it also dictates the success of your business. So having reached a point where I was like, okay, I'm zero tolerant now. I am that person that, and it's not in a selfish way, but I always look to create a lot of value for others. And if I have a kind of radar for people that are just looking to use or exploit me, and I didn't really have that before. So, I look very, very much for people who have the same values, who are good people, giving people, caring people, and I notice them now. And as a result, ever since that day, every single relationship, every single person that I've brought into my business or life, I have had a really overwhelmingly positive experience with. I've never, ever had a bad experience since then, not a single one. So, well, if I have, actually, that is a bit of a lie. That is a bit of a lie. But because of course there are always going to be people who turn up and you think they're okay, and then they turn out not to be okay. And so I've had a few of those, but the thing is I haven't let them take up a permanent position in my life. That's the thing. So I've got a lot better and a lot wiser at that. And I just wish that I had learned those lessons earlier in life, because I wouldn't have had to have gone through that pain. But hey, having been through it, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, as one of my friends, Ellen Cleans, often says. So I'm grateful for all those lessons, and I love to be able to bring them to other people as well.
I'm smiling and nodding because I resonated with literally everything you said.
Really?
Yeah, and I guess when life changes for whatever reason, for everything you've been through, we go through a period we go through grief. We just go through that grief curve, and at the bottom is that depression thing. I remember from my own experience, Jane, I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live. It was horrible, and it just everything was just falling apart. It felt like. But I think you're right. I think you need, like me personally, and I guess the same, needed to just get to the bottom of that, wherever it was of that journey, and then right now I can start climbing out, and sometimes it is back down again, and just kept going like this on a daily basis, and it's
up and down.
and I think the connection, I agree. I guess there's always going to be that one that slips under the radar, but I guess it sounds like you pick up on the red flag, and it's like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks now, which is important.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned red flags, and most definitely, I think, we have to be able to read other people, and I think we also have to be able to trust other people. So I think in the first instance, it's just awful to be one of those people that is just cynical and suspicious and untrusting the whole time, just believes the world is full of enemies. And we all know people like that. So I think you've got to maintain that kind of youthful sort of approach, just that open-minded and that kind of fresh, perspective. But at the same time, you've got to be very, very aware of when those red flags arise and what those red flags look like. And be very, very conscious to just, close it down in the best possible way, or confront and challenge, depending on, where you are. So I'm pretty quick to do that now.
Yeah, good. And to be honest, I kind of took it on the context that, hey, I see a red flag. Perhaps I'm wrong, but you know what? My gut is saying something else. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's, it's just, I think that seed's there now. So it's just better to say, yeah, let's cut it off, just from my point of view.
I mean, I read some.
Yeah, sorry. I like to see the good in people. Like you said, I'd like to have that open mind. I believe we've all got it in us, but I just feel that red flag is more saying this isn't going to work out between us or whatever, for whatever reason, whether it be business, friendship, anything like that. So
Yeah, so I actually read something the other day that said that people find it very, very hard to maintain a facade beyond 3 to 4 months. So 3 to 4 months into any relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a business relationship, a friendship, or whatever, the real person starts to emerge. So, you know, it is a fallacy that we can be absolutely right about somebody from day one. We can approach them with an open mind. We can, in a spirit of interest and inquiry, and, you know, be very, very trusting and extend our trust to them in the beginning. But within 3 to 4 months, we will know whether that person is somebody with integrity. And really, that's what I'm talking about. It's integrity, and that you know, that sense of actually wanting to make a positive difference to the lives of others rather than just enrich themselves personally.
Yeah, I love it, Jane. I love it. Great, really great advice. I absolutely love that. And it sounds like you kind of, where you're talking on connection, it's not like, I think you've kind of touched on it, as in it's on all levels, I guess, spiritual, or however anyone would see that as well, and just how you're feeling within yourself. Is that, you know, as a add-on?
Yeah, so I always say that connection exists on 3 levels. So there's connection to self, and connection to self is also connection to a higher power, or is your spiritual, you know, intuition. It's whatever it is that is your guiding light, your North Star that's within you. That, and people, obviously, some people, for them, it's very much about God, or you know, their gods or whatever. And for other people, it's about the universe, it's about intuition. You can call it whatever you like, but there is a kind of divine guidance that we really must pay attention to and honor. And I think what happens today is that a lot of people are so distracted by just the business of life that we don't really take the time to reflect and listen to that quiet inner voice, because that inner voice sometimes is very quiet. And I personally, when I look back, I think, you know, the times when I really have listened to that voice has been right. And when I've ignored that voice because I've just fallen into somebody else's agenda or reality or perception of me, or need to make me feel less than for whatever reason of their own, that is where I've gone wrong. So that's really connection to self. And then connection to others is your interpersonal skills and relationships. So how you actually build a relationship with people one-to-one, and how you listen, how you really respond to their needs, their agendas, their values, in order to build that trust and that connection. Because again, I'm sure that you know, and everybody knows, a lot of people, that they do this so wrong. They just talk about themselves incessantly. They don't really look to create value, or to find out what actually matters to another person. And they are just what one of my mentors said, they're just splashing in a sea of their own pain. So what they do, like that, and then you get all wet as well, because that's all they can see. So so the connection to others means stepping outside of that. And then of course the connection to many is when it starts to get technical, and that's the thing that I help with my Ideal Client Success program, which is really, how can I actually build on that connection and be that person that goes out there and you know, creates a genuine rapport out there in the wider world, that makes people see us as a leader, makes them feel that we are inspiring them, and brings them closer to us, and in a commercial sense, and makes them want to actually have what we have. So that's connection to many. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that, and it's so true. I think listening is it's not, I don't think it's an easy skill for many.
No, it isn't. And I think one thing is also that there's an awful lot of undiagnosed mental and psychological impairments. So for example, my sister is very she has ADHD, and you know, that obviously means that it's very hard for her to concentrate on what other people are saying, and her her concentration, her attention drift, which can sometimes make people feel as though they don't matter. So, people have to have an awareness of their own selves, let's just say, before they can really, develop that a genuine and authentic connection with others, and recognize those things in themselves that might be problematic in terms of that creating that disconnect. And as a corollary of that, my nephew has Asperger's, and his parents have always been so conscious of his impairment in that respect, and they work with him really from when he was very young to equip him with the social skills and the conversational skills. And as a result, and this is very, very touching, he's actually gone in for a career in hospitality, which I really love, because he now knows, look, I am somebody I'm very polite. I know how to make conversations. I know how to make people feel good about themselves. I know what to say to have a conversation, rather than having that kind of, just talking at them for about the rugby scores back to All Black scores back to 1971 or something, which he would otherwise do. So yeah, it's an interesting subject for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. No, 100%. Actually, just reminded me of it's a client of mine, but he's been on my podcast twice. His name's Charlie Morehouse. I think maybe a good guest for you, but he has Asperger's, and he's set himself on quite a mission now to do his own videos talking about his experience. And Jane, I learned so much just from listening to him. Wow. Made me think, and he's like how he's coped with it. And I thought, I'm going to take that tool and use that for me. I think you're right. Actually, there's a lot of things we just don't understand. And what's it they say in the 7 Habits? Seek first to understand to be understood. So.
Yeah, that's my absolute favorite book of all time. That guy, Stephen Covey. What would I have done to have had an audience with him? I just love that whole book from start to finish.
I know, it's very in-depth, very good, very, very good. So what's been, I don't know whether it be one of your guests, or have you got someone that's been like your biggest inspiration, or it may have evolved and changed over time?
Yeah, so I recently did my 100th interview on the Smart Connector podcast with Dr. John De Martini, and I love his thinking, his wisdom, and for me it was such a privilege to be able to interview him face to face, because when I learned about his some of his thinking, let's just say, I really, the scales fell from my eyes in many respects, in terms of my own perspective, and particularly this issue of connections. So, for example, I referenced him earlier. He talked about voids creating values. So anything that is absent in your life then becomes a priority for you. So if you don't have money, if the depth of your pain around something becomes then the depth of your motivation to achieve that. If you don't have money, you really want to have money. And the more you feel the pain of not having money, the more money becomes a priority, for example. So voids create values. And then another thing that he said is this thing about, your values are not something like, look, if somebody says to me, what's your values? So I would say love, courage, and truth. So I have like my top 3 values are love, courage, and truth. So every day, am I being loving? Am I being truthful? Am I being courageous? So that is a certain type of values. That's how you kind of define yourself. But the values that he talks about are really just kind of your priorities and what's most important to you at any given time. And he talks about so many interesting things, but it made me realize why, for example, the marriage between myself and my ex-husband was never really as happy as I would have liked, simply because we just wanted different things out of life. And no matter how much you talk around the surface issues and about how, I think you ought to be, spending more time itemizing, things from the supermarket and keeping a lid on our expenditure or anything like that. It's like, well, look, if somebody doesn't care about that, they don't care about it, and they're never going to care about it, right? So you have to talk to people if you want to influence them through their values, through the things that are really genuinely important to them. And if you can't do that, and if you're unwilling to do that, then really you are not fit to have or to be in an intimate relationship. So many people, they just go through life just living side by side. We all know that. And living in this kind of marriage or this relationship of convenience. And I think for me, engaging really deeply with his work made me understand, he is an expert really in the field of human potential, how important your values are to that particular, subject.
Yeah, that's so true. And I guess, again, it's just one of those things we just learn through experience, that how we do connect with people. And I think staying in things like that, for whatever reason, I think it can become toxic, but also I think it just becomes unfair to everybody. Yeah. It becomes really, quite unfair. So, no, good. So, I mean, I'm not a footballer. I do get quite engrossed in all the internationals, and that's when I start learning who's the footballers at the moment.
Yes.
So,
me too.
And just listening to what you've been saying about connecting, and just my opinion is, wow, what the team, the England team has done for the country to bring people together. My eldest son, he's not very particularly sporty, but he's been going crazy watching the football, absolutely loving it. So, and obviously, unfortunately, there's been a lot of controversy following the results. But what's your take on that? Just quite interested to see what your take is on the whole England football, and in terms of the connection and what they've done.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, everybody knows that those mass events like football and music and so on, they are the epitome of connection, because you get all of these people together in one place, and that energy is incredibly contagious. And so I think it was very poignant, really, the recent events, and the fact that England got so far, until obviously the defeat by Italy. So for me, it was really lovely and really refreshing to see people enjoying themselves, getting excited about, just getting that kind of spirit back into their lives, really, because it's been very sad to see all those empty football stadiums, and, know that performers were not allowed to go out and do their stuff and actually entertain and create all that incredible value for their fans. So I really love that aspect of it. Of course, like many people, I thought it was very sad when Marcus Rashford, he was obviously everybody's favourite, and then all of a sudden he lost the penalty shootout, didn't he? And then he started getting trolled, and I think that was just horrible. And it's just, I mean, there is no place for attitudes like that in a civilized society. I mean, the poor guy, what a difficult situation to be in. So I felt very, very sad for him. But I was also quite touched by the level of support as well, and the people that came out, to support him and to voice their views, really, about how ridiculous this kind of racism and I mean victimization really is. It is uncalled for, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jane. Obviously it would have been nice for England to win. I think the team, the players, the manager, they all deserve to win, just for how they've held themselves. They seem, to me, they've come across very humble. I think they're role models for our children, for all children. And I think I'm not disrespecting any other that's come before, but I feel that these have been some of the best role models in the public eye that we could possibly for our children, and how they've even conducted themselves after these stupid things that have been said. As a country, it would have been nice, but I guess as a country, we're not quite ready. We weren't quite, and I know we can say it's a minority, but I think you know what? We got to stop saying it's a minority. Oh, it's only the minority. It's almost like cushioning it. That's why I'm going off on one now. I do apologize, but I think no, it's only a minority is not good enough anymore. And thank God people have jumped in and condemned it. And I really hope these people need to be arrested, basically. Ideal world, they'd be sent to another country and listen, you go and walk in someone else's shoes for a little while, go and, help out in, somewhere. So in that sense, I hope as a positive from this that they can, it highlights it even more, and we can start to stamp out all this horrible abuse, basically. And then next year we might be ready as a country to win.
Yeah, I think that there's always been jealousy, and I think there's always been the underclass or the underdog or whatever. And generally what you find is that the people who they troll other people in any way, shape or form. And, anybody that is out there, in any public way, will get people who come up against them. And it even happens to me. I mean, look, it's not like I have a profile like Marcus Rashford, but I have people, frequently who will pop up and they'll say something, to try and ruin my day. And it's like, do you know what? Like, where does this all come from? I'm out there trying to spread good feeling, goodwill, be an inspiration to others. Don't think I say anything that's particularly controversial, but you do get, when I say haters, I mean, you do get people that just prick something in them. It just makes them feel maybe their own inadequacy or something. And then they just decide that they're going to take it out on somebody because they're having a bad day. And, if you're in the public eye in any way, shape or form, then you are just a target for that. And it's actually nothing to do with you most of the time. And I think that's important to remember, that it is all about them and not about you. And there are always going to be, well, if you say bad people in this world, there will be people who they behave badly. Maybe they haven't been exposed to the kind of influences that we have. Maybe they just, they're just not interested and they just rather be bad. I mean, look, but our job is really to try and protect people as leaders, try to protect others and support others from being stand against that kind of abuse, and also, to protect ourselves in as far as we can. Just by remaining neutral and just by remembering, look, hey, it's all about them and it's not about us.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it is. I think half the time when people say things, it's very much some kind of deeper reflection of themselves.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's funny when people do it online, though, because it's like, if they've got a gripe against you, and now they've just put this comment on, which is, right. I kind of like, I just want to send a message. Oh, thanks for commenting, because you've really just helped push my message out even more. They don't realize what they're doing.
I know. It's true. Yeah. So I think, we're on a mastermind group together, aren't we, Matt? And I know that this kind of comes up as a regular topic. And it's Rob Moore, isn't it? Who he talks about this, and obviously he's got a very big following. And so, he's got all sorts of tricks and tips up his sleeve. And one of the things that he does is, if somebody starts trolling him, he actually gets their telephone number and phones them up out of the blue. I don't know if you remember him saying that, but because he does, because people are very rarely, these keyboard warriors are very, very rarely the same in real life. And they're usually quite timid people. So if you really put them on the spot, he said it works a treat, and it actually stops them in their tracks. So I think that's the thing to remember. People feel, if they feel disempowered in their life, somehow the online environment gives them an opportunity to feel more powerful than they really feel. So, maybe we should just have compassion for them and just say, well, look, they're hurting, and that's why they're trying to hurt me or hurt, whoever it is. And, they are one of those people that just splashing around in their own pain and trying to get all the splashes on other people.
Again, I'm smiling on it. It's one of the things I teach the children for anti-bullying. When I do a lot more school talks, is we should feel sorry for the bully because they are hurting inside. But I just remember the post I seen the other day, Jane, and it was a local restaurant. It's such a nice bar and wok, and someone had just decided to put this 1-star review for whatever reason. But this is one of the nicest restaurants in Cheltenham where I live. And they posted it out. They said, "Thanks for your 1-star review," and people went nuts. It was like, "What? What are they talking about?" So they turned it. So then they suddenly got the reviews they deserved, and then this whole post of like how great it that place, deservedly so. So negatives can be turned into positives, can't they? It's always
definitely
great. So
in business as well as life.
Definitely. It's always a learning moment. Oh, thank you. So I mean, we've talked about the ups and the downs, and I think thank you again so much for sharing that, Jane, because I think it's quite important, and you probably the same. A lot of people in business and entrepreneurships, we've been like this, and we found a lot. I found a real rock bottom at some point in our life, and something. Oh, I had this aha moment. And now we're doing what we're doing, and we're enjoying it. And it's don't get me wrong, it's not all way unicorns and leprechauns dancing around me. I still have my
great image. Unicorns and leprechauns.
Nice.
Leprechauns riding on the back of unicorns.
Yeah,
I love it.
But I find it very inspiring to. I never like to hear a bad story, but when you hear about how someone's come out of it, it is so inspiring. So anyone's going for that at the moment, hey, good news is on the way. Better times are about to come. But I'm just interested to find out what's been your biggest win, say, within the last 12 months.
Yeah, well, for me, as I said, I've been doing this property stuff for a while. So, the financial stuff kind of it's a bit like buses. It comes all at once or not at all, because I introduce high net investors to development projects usually. So that's a very kind of, I always get like little hits, from those bit of money lands in the bank account. So that's kind of nice. But really, in terms of my own personal direction, really getting my ideal client success program off the ground has been great, and I've got really, really deep into the the marketing technology, which is something that has been relatively new for me. And because I am a marketer, because that is my background, I built this incredible, I'd say, like power team around me. So really a kind of tribe of really, really influential people. And we do things like we collaborate on Clubhouse. So we have a room on Monday night that's called Stand Out for Your Difference, Rise Above the Noise. So some incredible kind of influencers, really knowledgeable experts in, different social media platforms and so on. So that's been amazing. And, it's been really, really fun to do as well. And then obviously I've launched this program, and now I'm working with a group of mentees to help them, get their products online, develop courses, build funnels, get it out to the world, build a kind of digital ecosystem, if you like, around what they're doing. And what's really lovely about that is their passion, their enthusiasm, their excitement, because in a way, they know that this is the thing that's been holding them back. And I think this is very, very common because, if we're in the, let's say, training and mentoring space, there's a lot of people that they know how to get out there, how to get online, how to do social media, how to do all those tweaks and tips and hacks. But really scaling a business like that, and I know we were talking about this earlier, it does require let's just say, mastery of the tech and actually building out the right type of ecosystem to really move the needle on your growth. So being obviously a business growth expert, because that's something that I did for all those, years, I'm very, very sure-footed around that. So I can spot when people are, they're focusing on the wrong things, or they're really fiddling in the foothills where they should be actually going over there instead. So I help them with all of that, but also this thing about actually creating that infrastructure to fuel their growth. That is the thing. I can see their faces light up, and of course, it's great to be able to help other people do that. So I've really been having fun with that.
Oh, brilliant. That's kind of answered my next question, the challenges you got coming up over the next year or so, really. Yeah.
Challenges, yeah. So the challenge for me is really just to build out my business as a fully systemized selling machine. And that is the thing that because I know what to do, because as I said, with my marketing background, I know all the different approaches that people take, and I know which paths lead to which patterns of growth, let's just say. So it really is just kind of building, and the creative stuff and the technical stuff, they have to kind of go hand in hand, because obviously your messaging and your product and so on, they have to withstand the pressures in the market, and there are new people piling into the marketplace all the time. So unless you've got a really good product and a really strong product that really is very clearly articulated and actually genuinely helps other people, then you are not going to be able to scale. So I mean, fundamentally, you have to be able to communicate that. But beyond that, there is the tech piece, which is a lot of it is to do with interpreting the stats and the data, and putting the right tech in place, and doing all that stuff that involves things like APIs and Zapiers and all of the very, very, very heavy tech stuff that keeps a lot of people stuck in the foothills of their growth, as opposed to actually confidently scaling. So, I'm scaling my own business whilst helping other people scale business, but obviously I'm further ahead in my journey than they are in theirs. So yeah, I think that's when you run a training business, you just need to be further ahead, really. You don't need to be at the top of the mountain. Of course, if you are, then you can charge premium prices, and you can run huge groups with hundreds of people in them, and that's all fine. But I don't aim to do that. I aim to really support people in quite a sort of bespoke way for now. And yeah, so that's it. Yeah. I hope that answered the question, Matt.
Yeah, no, I love it. One of the things I always say, the rising tide raises all ships. So you're rising up, and yeah, and I think it's important because it shows that, hey, I haven't just stopped here. I'm growing. Come with me.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I invest very, very, heavily, really, and I have done in kind of mentors, in trainings. I've spent a lot of money on some very technical, trainings. And of course, when people work with me, then what it means is that they don't have to spend that time. They don't have to spend that money too, because I've actually, I've done it. And so I'm somebody very, very all in on my business. And I think one of the mistakes that people often make is they try to systemize, and they try to get to that kind of laptop lifestyle thing too early. And I really do, to me now, I can see the difference between people who are genuinely all in their business, and they live and breathe it every single day, and people that are trying to cut corners. Because it just shows in the end. So I think what people know about me is that I am very, very much all in, and very, very committed, not just to my own success, but also to the success of, the people that I work with. Because as I said before, the quality of your relationships dictates the quality of your life. So if I don't have my ideal clients, then how can I possibly preach that to other people? So yeah, I've got some great people that are doing some great things.
And I got to say, Jane, I think every mastermind you'll contribute in one way or another, even if it's just a question, you're always there. And it is, isn't it? It's just like being in that environment, like you said earlier. It's people that really want, we want to grow, but they want you to grow. We want them to grow. I think it's so.
So the power of masterminds are you know, they're really, really powerful. And I think when you get into those kind of, you know, let's just say the higher tier, the sort of paid masterminds, that's when you start being surrounded by people who are genuinely very serious, very invested in their business. They are willing to back themselves, and you just get a different quality, you know, caliber of person, really. So yeah, I've loved being on the brand marketing mastermind, you know, with you, Matt. I've actually won it, which is why I'm still on it, because my prize was you know, another year, and so I've been very privileged to have you know, won that prize, People's Choice Prize, which is always very nice. It's the best one, isn't it? So so yeah, but I've really loved it, and I've got so much value from it, and I've met some amazing people, done some podcast interviews like this one that we're having today, got some great podcast guests from it, and yeah, it's been inspiring, definitely.
Oh, 100%. We're just going to finish up very shortly, but I just wondered if you had, if you could revisit you might have already said it, but if you'd visit, what advice would you give your younger self, basically?
Yeah, so I mean, it's got to be all about connections. So always be clear about your purpose, or others will use you for theirs.
Oh, that is good.
You like it?
Yeah, that's a mic drop right there, Jane.
Shall I say it again? Shall I say it again?
Yeah.
Always be clear about your purpose, or others will use you for theirs. So yeah, that is my mantra, and I wish it had been my mantra from a very early age. Simple but powerful, isn't it?
The less is more. Definitely very powerful. I'm just going to finish up, but it's apparently it's Bastille Day in France today. What briefly, what does independence revolution mean for you in your own life?
Yeah, so Bastille Day, Marie Antoinette, who famously said, "Let them eat cake," or something, didn't she? Yeah. So basically, the Bastille Revolution was all about. It was an uprising, really, wasn't it, against unfair wealth and privilege, and of course, people being starving, really, while there was this, you know, massively lavish kind of example of you know, wealth and privilege going on alongside. So I mean, that happens all over the world, as we know, still today. And it's very, very sad that it does, because really, I think the people who are most privileged in our society have a duty, right, and an obligation to take care of people who are less privileged than them. So for me, Bastille Day, just yes, it's about sort of the freedom of expression, for sure. But it is also a reminder that, you know, we are all connected to one another. We all have a responsibility to our fellow human beings. And all the most famous philosophers, you know, across the centuries have always said the same thing. I mean, John Donne, back in, you know, the 15th century, he's a famous poet. He said, "No man is an island." We really aren't. So, you know, for me, Bastille Day, if I think about it, it's really just about, look, we have to take care of everybody, and we have to never take our own privilege for granted, and just use it for the good of the world, rather than just to enrich our own family.
Perfectly said again, Jane. Thank you so much for that. And you're absolutely right. We all need each other, even in business. Like, we need competitors, because how would we manage everybody? We just wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
So we do. Yeah, we need all that. And that's why collaborations, I think, work so well, and rather than trying to compete against people. So yeah, in every aspect. So yeah, you hit, that was brilliant, beautifully said. Thank you so much for coming on today, Jane. Very quickly, how can someone get in contact with you? I think I've put some links in the comments, but please put some more in.
Yeah, so my Email address is jane@janebayler.com. If you go to my website, which is www.janebayler.com, you can see all of my links, my social media. I'm active on social media, so LinkedIn, Facebook, or whatever. Just send me a message. I'd love to hear from you, and please also check out my podcast. I hope to interview Matt soon on there, and I've got some amazing guests. So feel free to head on over there, iTunes, Spotify, and so on. Love to hear from you.
Of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Smart Podcaster.
Yeah.
I know you've had some amazing guests on there, and it'd be a pleasure to come on. So thank you so much. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Jane, and for sharing everything you shared. Some great words of wisdom, some great key takeaways there. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. I'm back next week. I'm just testing out Wednesdays for the live. Of course, podcast will always be out on a Tuesday. So don't forget to subscribe. And of course, share.
Definitely share. Yeah. Thanks ever so much, Matt. It's been such an honor and a privilege, and I really appreciate you inviting me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Perfect. I'll speak to you offline in just a sec. Peace, love, everybody. Bye-bye.